Book 10, Aeolus, the Laestrygonians, and Circe. Next we reach Aeolus, a floating island where Aeolus lives, son of Hippotas, whom immortal gods hold dear. Around it runs an impenetrable wall of bronze, and cliffs rise up in a sheer face of rock. His 12 children lived there in the palace, 6 daughters as well as 6 full-grown sons. He gave the daughters to the sons in marriage, and they were always at a banquet feasting, beside their dear father and good mother, with an infinite supply of tasty food. We reached the splendid palace of the city, and for 1 whole month he entertained me, always asking questions about everything: Troy, Argives, ships, how Achaeans made it home, and I told him all from start to finish. When, for my part, I asked to take my leave and told him he should send me on my way, he denied me nothing and helped me go. He gave me a bag made of oxhide, flayed from a creature 9 years old, and tied up in it all the winds that blow from every quarter, for Cronus' son had made Aeolus keeper of the winds, and he could calm or rouse them as he wished. With a shining silver cord he lashed that bag inside my hollow ship so as to stop even the smallest breath from getting out. He also got a west wind breeze to blow to carry ships and men on their way home. For 9 whole days and nights we held our course, and on the 10th we glimpsed our native land. We came in so close we could see the men who tend the beacon fires. But then sweet sleep came over me. I was too worn out. All that time my hands had gripped the sail rope. I'd not let go of it or passed it on to any shipmate, so that we'd get home more quickly. But as I slept, my comrades started talking to each other, claiming I was taking gold and silver back with me. Glancing at the man who sat beside him, one of them would say something like this: "It's not fair. Everyone adores this man and honors him no matter where he goes. To any city, any land, from Troy, he's taking a huge stash of glorious loot. But those of us who've been on the same trip are coming home with empty hands. And now Aeolus, because he's a friend of his, has freely given him these gifts. Come on, let's see how much gold and silver he has in this bag." As they talked like this, my companion's greedy thoughts prevailed. They untied the bag. All the winds rushed out. Storms, winds seized them, swept them out to sea, in tears, away from their own native land. At that point, I woke up. Deep in my heart, I was of 2 minds. I could jump overboard and drown at sea, or just keep going in silence, remain among the living. I stayed there and suffered on. Covering up my head, I lay down on the deck while our ships, loaded with my whimpering companions, were driven by those wicked blasts of wind all the way back to Aeolus' island. I set off for Aeolus' splendid palace. I found him feasting with his wife and children, so he went into the house and sat down on the threshold right beside the doorpost. In their hearts they were amazed. They asked me, "Odysseus, how is it you come back here? We took great care to send you on your way, so you get home back to your native land." That's what they asked. With a heavy heart I answered them, "My foolish comrades, aided by malicious sleep, have injured me. But my friends, you can repair all this. That's in your power." I said these words to reassure them, but they stayed silent. Then their father gave me this reply: "Of all living men, you are the worst, so you must leave this island with all speed. It would violate all sense of what is right if I assisted or escorted on his way a man the blessed gods must hate. So leave. You're here because the deathless gods despise you." Once he said this, he sent me from his house for all my heavy groans. Then, sick at heart, we sailed on further, my crewmen's spirits worn down by the weary work of rowing. Because we'd been such fools, there was no breeze to help us on our way. We went on like this for 6 whole days and nights. On the 7th, we came to Telepolis, great citadel of Lamus, king of Laestrygonians, into a lovely harbor with a sheer cliff around it on both sides. Jutting headlands facing one another extended out beyond the harbor mouth, a narrow entrance. All my shipmates brought their curved ships up and moored them inside the hollow harbor in tightly clustered group. In that spot there were never any waves, large or small. Everything was calm and bright around them, but I moored my black ship all by itself against a harbor right against the land, tying it to the rock. I clambered up the cliff and stood there on a rugged outcrop looking round. I could see no evidence of human work or plowing, only smoke rising from the land. I sent some comrades out to learn what the inhabitants were like. They left the ships and came to a smooth road which wagons used to haul wood to the city from high mountain slopes. Outside the city they met a young girl collecting water, the noble daughter of Antiphates, Laestrygonian. They asked the girl who ruled the people there and who they were. She quickly pointed out her father's lofty home. They reached the splendid house and found his wife, a gigantic woman, like a mountain peak. They were appalled. She called her husband, a strong Antiphates, out of a meeting, and he arranged a dreadful death for them. He seized one of my shipmates and prepared to make a meal of him. The other two jumped up, ran off, and came to the ships. Antiphonus then raised a hue and cry throughout the city. When they heard his call, the power of Laestrygonians poured out, thronging in countless numbers from all sides, not like men at all, but giants. From the cliffs they hurled rocks down on us, the largest stones a man can lift. The clamor rising from the ships was dreadful. Men were being destroyed. Ships were smashing to one another, with those monsters spearing men like fish and taking them to eat a gruesome meal. While they were slaughtering the sailors there, I trapped in the deep harbor. I grabbed my sword, pulled it from my thigh, and cut the cables on my dark prowed ship, yelling to my crew, ordering them to put their oars to work so we can get away from this disaster. They all churned the water with their oar blades, terrified of being killed. We were relieved as my ship left the beetling cliffs behind, moving out to sea. But all the other ships moored together in the harbor were destroyed. We sailed on from there with heavy hearts until we reached the island of Aeaea, where fair-haired Circe lived, fearful goddess. Here in silence we brought our ship to land inside a harbor with fine anchorage. Some god was guiding us. Then we disembarked and laid up in that spot 2 days and nights, our hearts consumed with weariness and pain. As soon as rose-fingered early dawn appeared, I called a meeting and addressed them all together. Shipmates, let's quickly put our heads together to see if we have any options left. I don't think we do. I climbed a rocky crag and from that vantage point spat out the land. It's an island with deep water all around it, low-lying and flat. I saw with my own eyes smoke rising in the middle of the island through dense brush and trees. That's what I said. But their spirits fell as they remembered what Laestrygonian Antiphonus had done and the violence they raped Polyphemus, that man-eating cyclops. They wept aloud, shedding frequent tears. But their laments were not much help to us. So I split up a well-armed comrades in 2 separate groups, each with its own leader. I commanded one, and god-like Aeolus led the other. We shook our tokens in a bronze helmet. When brave Aeolus lot fell out, he set off with 22 companions, all in tears, leaving us behind to grieve. In a forest clearing they found Circe's house, built of polished stone with views in all directions. There are mountain wolves and lions round it, all bewitched by Circe's wicked potions. But these beasts made no attack against my men. No, they stood on their hind legs and fawned, wagging their long tails, just as dogs will beg around their master when he comes from dinner, since he keeps bringing scraps to please their hearts. That's how the wolves and sharp-clawed lions there kept fawning around those men who were afraid just looking at those fearful animals. They stood in fair-haired Circe's gateway and heard her sweet voice singing in the house as she went back and forth before her loom, weaving a huge immortal tapestry, the sort of work which goddesses create, finely woven, luminous, and beautiful. They all started shouting, calling her. She came out at once, opened the bright doors, and asked them in. In their foolishness, they all accompanied her. Aeolus was the only one who stayed outside. He thought it could be something of a trick. She led the others in and sat them down on stools and chairs and made them a drink of cheese and barley meal and yellow honey stirred into Pramnian wine. But with the food she mixed a vicious drug so they would lose all memories of home. When they drank down the drink she gave them, she took her wand, struck each man, then pinned them in her pigsties. They had bristles, heads, and voices just like pigs. Their bodies looked like swine, but their minds were as before unchanged. In their pens they wept. In front of them Circe threw down feed, acorns, beechnuts, cornel fruit, the stuff pigs eat when they are wallowing in mud. Aeolus came back immediately to our swift-splashed ship, bringing a report of his comrade's bitter fate, eyes full of tears. I slung my large bronze silver-tipped studded sword across my shoulder, grabbed my bow, and left. But while I was moving through the sacred groves on my way to Circe's home, a goddess skilled in many magic potions, I met Hermes of the Golden Wand. I was going toward the house. He looked like a young man when the first growth of hair is on his lip, the age when the youthful charm is at its height. He gripped my hand, spoke to me, and said, "Your comrades over there at Circe's house are penned up like swine in narrow stalls. Are you intending now to set them free? I don't think you'll make it back yourself. You'll stay there with the rest of them. But come, I'll keep you free from harm and save you. Here, take a remedial potion with you. Go in Circe's house. It's a protection and will clear your head of any dangers this day brings. She won't have power to cast a spell on you. This fine potion, which I'll provide you, won't allow it." After saying this, the killer of Argus pulled a herb out of the ground, gave it to me, and explained its features. Its roots were black, the flower milky white. Moly, the gods call it. Then Hermes left through the wooded island bound for high Olympus. I continued on to Circe's home. As I kept going, my heart was turning over many gloomy thoughts. Once I made it over to the gateway of fair-haired Circe's house, I just stood there and called out. The goddess heard my voice. She came out at once, opened the bright doors, and asked me in. So I went in with her, heart full of misgivings. She led me in and set me on a silver-studded chair. A lovely object, but beautifully made, with a stool underneath to rest my feet. She She mixed her potion in a golden cup for me to drink. In it she placed the drug, her heart still bent in mischief. She gave it to me, and when I drank it without being bewitched, she struck me with her wand and said these words, "Off now to your sty, and lie in there with the rest of your companions." She spoke, but I pulled out the sharp sword on my thigh and charged at Circe, as if I meant to kill her. She gave a piercing scream, ducked, ran up, and clasped my knees. Through her tears she spoke. Her words had wings. "What sort of man are you? Where are you from? Where is your city, your parents? I'm amazed you drank this drug and were not bewitched. No other man who swallowed it has been able to resist once it's passed the barrier of his teeth. In that chest of yours, your mind holds out against myself. You must be Odysseus, that resourceful man, the killer of Argus, Hermes of the golden wand. Always told me Odysseus in his swift black ship would come on his way back from Troy. Come, put that sword back in its sheath and let the two of us go up into my bed. When we've made love, then we can trust each other." When she said this, I answered her and said, "O Circe, how can you ask me to be kind to you? In your own home, you changed my crew to pigs and keep me here. You're plotting mischief now, inviting me to go to your room and to your bed. So when I have no clothes, you can do me harm, destroy my manhood. But I won't agree to climb into your bed unless, goddess, you'll agree to swear a solemn oath they will make no more plans to injure me with some new mischief." When I said this, she made the oath at once, as I'd asked, that she'd not harm me. When she'd sworn and finished with the oath, I went out with Circe to her splendid bed. Meanwhile, 4 women serving in her home were busy in the hall, children of springs, groves, and sacred rivers flowing to the sea. One of them threw lovely purple coverlets across the chairs and spread linen underneath. Another pulled silver tables over to each chair and then placed silver baskets on them. The third one mixed deliciously sweet wine inside a silver bowl, then served it out in cups of gold. The fourth brought water in. It lit a large fire under a huge cauldron and warmed the water up until it boiled inside the shining bronze. She sat me in a tub, then diluting water from that cauldron so it was right for me, gave me a bath, pouring water on my head and shoulders until the weariness that set my spirits had left my limbs. After bathing me, she rubbed me with rich oil, then dressed me in a fine cloak and tunic and led me to a handsome chair embossed with silver, finely crafted with a footstool underneath. A servant brought in a lovely golden jug, poured water out in a silver basin so I could wash, and set a polished table at my side. Then the worthy steward brought in bread and set it there before me, placing with it large quantities of food given freely from her stores. She bid me eat. But in my heart I had no appetite, so I sat there, thinking of other things, my spirit sensing something ominous. When Circe noticed me sitting there, not reaching for the food, weighed down with grief, she came up close and spoke winged words to me. "Odysseus, why are you sitting here like this, like someone who can't speak, eating at your heart, never touching food or drink? Do you think this is another trick? You don't need to fear. I've already made a solemn promise. I won't injure you." When she said this, I answered her and said, "O Circe, what man with any self-respect would start to eat and drink before he had released his shipmates and could see them face to face? For being sincere in asking me to eat and drink, then set my comrades free, so my own eyes can see my trusty crew." When I said this, Circe went through the hall, her wand clutched in her hand, and opened up the pigsty doors. She drove the herd out. They looked like full-grown pigs, 9 years old, standing in front of her. She went through them, smearing on each one another potion. Those bristles brought on by that nasty drug which they received from Circe earlier fell from their limbs, and they were men again, more youthful and much taller than before, more handsome to the eye. Now they knew me. Each man grabbed my hand, and all of them were overcome with passionate weeping, so the whole house around them echoed strangely. Circe herself was moved to pity them. Standing close to me, the lovely goddess said, "Son of Laertes, resourceful Odysseus, born from Zeus, go now to the seashore, back to your swift ship, drag it up on land, and stash your goods and all equipment in the caves. Then come back here in person and bring your loyal companions with you." Her words persuaded my proud heart. I left, going back to our swift ship beside the sea. I found my trusty comrades at the ship, lamenting miserably, shedding many tears. Just as on a farm, calves frisk around the herd when cows, having had their full of grazing, return back to the yard. They skip ahead, and pens no longer hold them as they run, and mooing in a crowd around their mothers. That's how my shipmates, once they saw me, thronged around, weeping. In their hearts it felt as if they'd got back to their native land, the rugged town of Ithaca itself. Meanwhile, Circe had been acting kindly to the rest of my companions in their home. She had given them baths, rubbed them with rich oil, and dressed them in warm cloaks and tunics. She found them all quite cheerful, eating in the hall. When my man saw each other and recognized her shipmates face to face, their crying and moaning echoed through the house. The lovely goddess came to me and said, "Resourceful Odysseus, Laertes' son, come now, eat my food and drink my wine until you've got back that spirit in your chest you had when you first left your native land of rugged Ithaca. You're exhausted now. You have no spirit. You're always brooding in your painful wanderings. There's no joy inside your heart. You've been through so much." Our proud hearts were persuaded by her words. We stayed there day by day for 1 whole year, feasting on sweet wine and large supplies of meat. But as the months and seasons came and went, long spring days returned. A year had passed. My trusty comrade summoned me and said, "You, God-driven man, now the time has come to think about your native land once more, if you are fated to be saved and reach your high-roofed home and your own country." My proud heart was persuaded by their words, so all day long until the sun went down we sat there, feasting on huge amounts of meat and on sweet wine. Once the sun had set and darkness came, they lay down to sleep in the shadowy hall. I went to Circe in her splendid bed and clasped her knees. The goddess listened to me as I begged, speaking these winged words to her. "Circe, grant me the promise which you made to send me home. My spirit's keen to leave, as are the spirits of my companions too, who as they grieve around me drain my heart whenever they are not among us." I spoke. The lovely goddess answered me at once. "Resourceful Odysseus, Laertes' son and Zeus's child, if it's against your will, you should not now remain here in my house. But first you must complete another journey to the home of Hades and dread Persephone. Consult the shade of that deep and prophet, the blind Tiresias. His mind is unimpaired, even though he's dead. Persephone has granted him the power to understand. The others flit about, mere shadows." As Circe finished, my spirit was breaking. I sat weeping on her bed, for my heart no longer wished to live or glimpse the daylight. But when I'd had enough of shedding tears and rolling in distress, I answered her, "Circe, who will be the guide in such a journey? No one ever sailed a black ship down to Hades." The lovely goddess gave me a quick answer. "Resourceful Odysseus, Laertes' son and Zeus's child, don't concern yourself about a pilot for your ship. Raise the mast, spread your white sail, and just take your seat. Then the breath of north wind Boreas will take you on your way. But once your ship crosses flowing Oceanus, drag it ashore at Persephone's groves on the level beach where tall poplars grow, willows shed their fruit, right beside deep swirling Oceanus. Then you must go to Hades' murky home. There, Periphlegython and Cocytus, a stream which branches off the river Styx, flow into Acheron. There's a boulder where these two flowing rivers meet. Go there, heroic man, and follow my instructions. Move close and dig a hole there 2 feet square. Pour libations to the dead around it, first with milk and honey, next sweet wine, and then a third with water. And shake out white barley meal. Then pray there in earnest to many powerless heads of those who've died, with a vow that when you reach Ithaca at home, you'll sacrifice a barren heifer, the best you have, and will cram the altar with fine gifts, and that you will make an offering to Tiresias, a black ram, just for him, the finest creature in your flocks. And then, when you've offered prayers of supplications to celebrated nations of the dead, you must sacrifice a ram and a black ewe, twisting their heads down toward the Erebus, while you turn to face the flowing rivers, looking backwards. At that point, many spirits will emerge. They're the shadows of the dead. Then call your crew. Tell them to flay and burn the sheep lying there, killed by pitiless bronze. Pray to the gods, to powerful Hades and dread Persephone. Then from your thigh you must yourself draw that sharp sword out, and sitting there prevent the powerless heads from those who died from coming near their blood, until you've listened to Tiresias." Circe finished. Dawn soon came on her golden throne. The nymph then dressed me in cloak and tunic, and clothed her body in a long white robe, a lovely finely woven garment, and tied a splendid golden belt around her waist. On her head she placed a veil. Then I went through her house, rousing my companions, going up to each man, reassuring him. "No more sleeping now, no sweet slumbering. Let's go. Queen Circe's told me what to do." That's what I said, and their proud hearts agreed.